we want to talk about how you've been and what this has meant in the life of Mac.
I was freaking out. So let's, should I share kind of the backstory of what happened?
Yeah, let's start from the beginning.
What really happened with my health journey was interesting, and I think it's important. So this all started back in, I think, March or April. I was in Barcelona and I was having chest pains, not on my heart side, but on my other side. And I originally thought I pulled a muscle in the gym, is what I thought at first. But then after it lasted for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I was like, okay, this isn't a muscle, it's something else. And so we were coming back to the US soon, and I knew I would be able to see my doctor. And when I got back to the United States, I reached out to my primary doctor and I said, hey, I'm having these chest pains and I don't know what's causing it. And he's a great doctor, but he actually was pretty dismissive. He said, well, you have reflux. Don't worry about it. And so for about a week, I thought, oh, he's probably right. And then I thought, I know my body. This doesn't feel like reflux to me. It feels different. So I have another friend that's a GI doctor, and I reached out to him and I said the same thing. Hey, I'm having these chest pains. Maybe it's reflux, but it seems different. And he too said, I'm sure it's reflux. We've done the endoscopy on you before. We know you don't have any problems in your esophagus or intestines. We know you're all fine. So there's not much value in doing another endoscopy. And at the very end of the call, he said, although if you are anxious about it for any reason, call me back in a week or two. And so I said, okay. And so against kind of the advice of two doctors who I know and like and trust, I called him back and said, yes, I would like to get a scope done because something feels off to me. So I go in for my scope. They give you a medicine so you have no idea what's going on. They kind of put you in light sleep. And I woke up in the recovery room after getting the scope, and the doctor was like, holy crap, I'm glad we got you in. You have a mass in your intestines that was not there last time we had a scope done. And at the time, again, he's a friend. He was like, basically saying, don't worry. I'm sure it is nothing. I'm sure it's a cyst or something benign. I wouldn't worry about it, but I want to get you in very quickly to have another more detailed test done. So that basically kicked off, no exaggeration, a solid 3 weeks of test. I went in within days and had another special endoscopy done with a biopsy and an ultrasound. And in that test, they basically found that I had what's called spindle cells, which is a pretty aggressive form of cancer, that this tumor was spindle cell, and that I needed another series of tests, CT scans, MRIs, all of these things, and that I probably would need surgery pretty quickly. And so here I went from a person who is very proactive about health. I get scans. I take what's called the GRAIL cancer test every year, which is a test meant to detect cancer very early. And they basically told me, you have a very rare, aggressive kind of tumor, or we think it's aggressive. And to make matters worse, during this journey, I also found out it is sitting on my pancreas, which makes it virtually impossible to go in with what they call laparoscopic or robotic surgery. Because of the location, they believed that they would either have to take out a section of my intestines or very likely do what's called Whipple surgery, which is very invasive. They go in, they remove part of your intestines, part of your stomach, part of your pancreas, and they reroute your intestines so that you literally have a totally new journey for digestion. And that's a significant surgery. It's like over a week in the hospital post-surgery, 8 weeks of laying in bed. They're just opening you up and moving a bunch of stuff around. And because of that type of surgery, we found a surgeon who is incredibly good and specializes in this type of surgery. But the chance of complications are much higher because, yeah, you have to reroute and remove part of multiple organs and learn to digest again and hope that everything works properly. And so it's very intensive. And so the past month, that was the journey I was on. And as a person who values freedom, and I go to the gym every day and I like to travel. And when we found this out, basically we had to cancel my return to Spain, get almost everything off my calendar. I was a little bit scared, right? I also was very frustrated because I'm just super active. And so the idea of laying in bed for 2 days, much less 2 months, was really tough for me mentally. Then, kind of crazy as things happen, my wife and I met with the surgeon to schedule surgery. And because my case was unique and rare, as they described it, because of a combination of where it was found, where the tumor was, the type of tumor it seemed to be, they put together what they call a tumor board, which basically brings pathologists, oncologists, surgeons all together to look at my scans and discuss my case and decide the best way forward. And so they did that very early the morning that I was supposed to meet the surgeon. Janelle and I went in to meet with the surgeon, and they had just come out of that tumor board meeting. And he said, I know you're really anxious to get this surgery, because for me, the minute they had the diagnosis and I knew I needed to have surgery, even though I was nervous about it, I was like, I'm ready to go. Like, sign me up. Let's get this done. And so he said, I know you're anxious to get this surgery started, but I want you to get one more biopsy, just because we want to really determine the tumor type and double confirm the location, because that will really help us determine the surgery strategy. So I sort of reluctantly agreed to get one more biopsy. I mean, I think you can probably still see on my arms, they're all like bruised, and I've had so many blood tests and blood draws. My arms are all beat up, and I was like, I'll have one more test. So I went in and got this last biopsy. And when I came awake in the recovery room, the doctor who did the biopsy said, I don't want to jump the gun, but the pathologist was in the room with me, and they looked at the tissue samples we got from your biopsy, and we don't see any cancer. And so my dad was with me. I sort of looked at him, and he looked at me. We're like, that can't be right. But through this journey, one thing I learned is I'm a very optimistic person, but almost every time I had a new scan or a new test, the news was worse. And so I was trying not to get my hopes up and say, oh,
Yeah.
it's benign, I'm cured. I thought going to come back exactly as we expected. My surgery is going to be within days. And I just kept saying to myself, it is what it is. I'm going to fight through it. I know I can do this. So I'm not going to get overly excited. But then over the next 24 hours, my GI doctor and my surgeon called after the full pathology report and said, this is either benign, meaning no cancer, or it is so mild in terms of the cancer or tumor type that the surgery is riskier than this tumor. And so they were like, we think you need to cancel surgery and move on with your life. Of course, we'll monitor it. We'll scan it every 3 to 6 months, but we don't think you have anything to worry about. So it has been this incredible roller coaster of some of the hardest and worst news I've ever received, to either a misdiagnosis potentially or a miracle. And I don't know which it was, and I'll take it all. So that's been the journey over the past 30 days.
Would you say that the thing that was bothering you the most, of course, besides the fact that it's your health, was the idea or the thought of you having to be off for a period of time?
In the back of my mind, I was like, it's cancer. If I have it now, I might be fighting this the rest of my life to some degree. If you have it once, it's more likely to come back in some different shape or form or something. I was a little bit worried about my health. But I think the front of my mind, it was really two things. One is I could not imagine laying around for a month or two. I was legitimately worried about that. And my wife was basically telling me, like, stop watching movies because you're going to be watching a lot of movies, and stop reading books because you're going to be reading a lot of books. She knew that she was going to have to like almost fight me in a good way every day to be like, you need to stay still. I was definitely worried about that. I'm not good at sitting still. And the other thing I think is very true is I was worried about my family. I was worried about my wife and my kids, and what is the position I'm leaving them in if something were to happen? Because of course, not only with cancer in general, that's a risk factor, of course, for your longevity, but they're putting you to sleep for 8 or 9 hours. You're getting very intensive surgery. And so my mind was kind of like, do I have enough life insurance? Do I have the right things in place for my kids and my wife? And is everything okay and taken care of? The reason that's so relevant in my mind is I tried so hard to stay positive, and that's a very negative thought, is like, but if I don't come out of surgery? I didn't want to say that to myself, and I didn't, literally for a month, I don't think I said the word cancer. 3 times. I kept saying tumor and surgery and mass, but I was not willing to let my own mind hear me say cancer, much less say it to the world, even though I knew what it was. I feel very fortunate. I know there are people that don't have family around them that they can rely on or trust. And in this process, my parents were immediately supportive, which is wonderful. My wife, we downplayed this to my daughters because I didn't want them to worry. And so I was trying to make it sound like it wasn't that big of a deal because I didn't want them to worry about me, honestly. But of course, my family, and then I have a few very good friends. I didn't tell many people. Honestly, I told a handful of people. And so I had a few good friends that I spoke to about this, and they were incredibly supportive, which is great. But a lot of it to me was I've had this mentality my whole adult life, or at least from the time I can remember as a teenager, is like, I know I'm going to have challenges and I know or believe I can get through them. And I think a lot of quote success for me or for anybody in life is looking at stuff that's coming at you that's going to be negative and realizing not only are you going to get through it, but there's some lesson that's going to come out of it. I've said I got kicked out of my first college, and I probably have said it 1,000 times. It is one of the best things that ever happened to me. At the time, I literally was thinking my life is over. It was a very good university. I had a soccer scholarship. I was playing at a top team, and I thought I lost all that. I blew it. And so I think for a long time, I've looked at these moments in business and in your personal life as they're going to be hard. Maybe they're going to suck, but you have to fight through them. And that's kind of was my attitude from the minute I heard this. Within 24 hours, I was telling myself, even though I was having to fight through it, it's a bump in the road. You're going to get through it. And on the backside, it's going to be even better. And there's going to be some big lessons.
Yeah. Would you say you have, I call it the immunity mentality? Like, I know that a lot of things could happen to me, and I'm aware of that, and a lot of things have happened. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, even though those things happen to me, as you said, I know I'm going to get through all of that. Do you think you have that sort of mentality has helped you pull through this?
Yeah, I really believe, and now it feels stronger than ever, that the only way I can be defeated is if I give up. There's no other way I'm going to be defeated. And that's true of my health. That's true of my business. That's true of my marriage. That's true of my friendships. It's like, unless I give up, which I am not inclined to do, I'm just going to fight through. This was like a hard face punch. It was like, whew, this is not what I'm used to dealing with. I was like doubling and tripling down on the routine of like, I'm going to go to the gym because I need the mental discipline of continuing to do stuff. And then at the gym, I was listening to podcasts and videos of people that's their mentality as they fight through.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, if you go through these things, I think how positive or negative you are plays a big role in letting go or keep pushing.
Yeah, I think I am an upbeat, optimistic person. I joke around all the time. I'm mostly in a good mood. I don't let a lot of things bother me for long. But if you were to talk to my wife of almost 30 years, I get in what she would call a funk. Mentally, I can start getting myself in. Why is this happening to me? I've been working so hard, or health-wise, I've been eating better and going to the gym. It's a reaction to stuff happening in my life. And what I've realized over the years is I have to fight that. If I just let that happen, I think I would just go deeper and deeper into anxiety or depression or whatever might naturally happen. But I feel that someone around me will be like, something bothering you? And I'm like, oh, wow, it's external. I'm not smiling. I'm not being myself. And that to me is a very strong signal.
Do you think there is a lesson behind everything that happens?
I think it's easier for me to think about the lessons from the bad things and the tough things. When something good happens, maybe it validates that you made the right decisions. When bad things happen, that's to me when I actually take a little more time to look at it and go, what's the lesson? What did I learn? What do I do differently? When I've made dumb mistakes in business, the thing I always tell myself is, okay, that was definitely stupid or was a mistake, but definitely don't do it again. Learn from it, right? And don't make the same mistake twice. I'm going to continue to make mistakes, but don't make the same one again or multiple times.
I know it's like very recent because you got all the good news last week, but Do you have a sense of what the lesson was this time? Or are you still navigating?
I'm still processing. There are definitely in my mind, there are a couple of big takeaways that I would tell anybody. Number one, the way this started was, I think, an important lesson, which is I think to myself, I felt something in my body physically. And of course, because I am proactive and I care about my health, I reached out to doctors. But I basically had two very smart, trusted doctors tell me I was fine and not to worry about it. And I kind of went against their recommendation because I felt like I knew my body. And nobody knows us as well as we know ourselves. Doctors are also human. And what I understand very well now, probably better than I ever did before, they're human, but they're also really looking at statistics, and they go back to their training and med school and the literature. And what they're basically doing is when you say, I have chest pain, they're saying Mac is 54, he's healthy. It's probably not this, or this, because statistically speaking, those things aren't likely. Doesn't mean it's not possible. It's just not likely. And so I think I had multiple doctors making quick decisions based on statistics and going, statistically speaking, they were right. Probably wasn't anything, but it was. So I think that's important because I could have easily listened to smart people that are smarter than me about these things and waited another 6 months, and the cancer that they detected could have easily metastasized into multiple organs and created a much bigger problem. But because I was very proactive, I caught this tumor early. So that was a lesson. And then the other thing, which is really interesting, is I feel very blessed and fortunate all the way back to the year 2000 that I talk about a lot, when my daughter was born, and the decisions I made in terms of how we've lived. We've traveled a lot. We've done a lot of things that feel like bucket list. When this happened, when the diagnosis happened, my wife and I basically wrote down our bucket list and documented hers and mine. And it was giving me kind of optimism and hope that we could say, when we get to the backside of this, we're going to attack that list, right? We're going to book the flights. We're going to make these things happen. And so it really was a eye-opening sense of, I've been, again, very fortunate and blessed, and I know that, but like, wow, there's still a lot of stuff I want to do. What if I couldn't? And I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not waiting. I feel super strongly about that. I have for a long time. But even for me, someone that kind of lives by a bucket list mentality, wow, there is a lot that, what if I couldn't hike in Switzerland anymore? Or in 5 years, what if I can't? I'm going to do it now. So that was the reaction to the diagnosis. And then, of course, as soon as we got the good news that I was kind of clear, we literally booked our return to Spain the next day. We were trying to book tickets to Oktoberfest. They're sold out, but we're going to Switzerland. As I told you earlier, we're probably coming to Costa Rica. We basically pulled out the list and said, now let's start booking these trips. And it's not just travel, but it's like time with family, time with my girls. So yeah, that's probably the thing I feel as I'm still processing it. I don't know that I've ever had a stronger signal of, that's why you
Yeah,
can't wait
yeah,
until you're 75 or 80 to sell your company or to start to take trips, because you
yeah,
never.
yeah. It was a wake-up call. What has all of this meant for you and your family? Because I think, of course, there was probably fear coming from everyone.
Not that I think I'm like a tough guy, but at the same time, I'm emotional because whatever, I care, but I'm not a big crier. That's just not my natural reaction to things. Janelle, she's tough as nails. I don't want to give this a name. I don't want to call it cancer. I don't want to research the type of tumor it is. I don't want to know what the statistics say. I was like, I don't care. I just need to get surgery and attack this thing. Nell was, to my face, very like, we got this, don't worry about it. Like, you're a fighter, it's all good. But quietly was looking at all of the research and being like, oh my God, this is not good. She was worried. I think my parents were very, very worried. I knew I would get through it, but in my mind, it was a very heavy burden. I tried to get outside every day. One of the luxuries of the way I live my life is I have a great home office set up in Barcelona, a great home office set up here. I can literally get out of bed and walk 5 feet and start working. which is nice, but it's also really easy to not shower or not even think about getting ready for the day. And when all this was happening, part of my mindset was go to the gym, come back, shower, get ready, get dressed. Those are things that really help me, like just feel like I'm being proactive. I'm doing the things that I can control to make myself feel better and do better. So that was a big part of it. I'm kind of glad that it happened because it also made me feel so much better. It was a recent, fresh reminder of, oh, yeah, that's why you should do that stuff all the time. Like, you don't need to
Yeah.
wait for a bad diagnosis to get sun every day and go to the gym. You should do that every day anyway. I'm telling myself that. That's been a big takeaway.
What role is intention playing in all of this?
To me, it's ironic is probably the right way to say it, in that I live this way and I believe this stuff and I felt this way for a lot of the last 25 years since I made the decision to live differently and with intention. The recent journey has taken that intentional undertone and literally put it as like number one on the list. And I'm asking myself every day, what would I change? Because again, we all have things, right? Like I'm still doing some things and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing that again? Why am I wasting time on that? Or why did I care about that? Versus time with family, travel, helping people in business that I really want to help. And a big one for me, and I think you all know this, is because of my personality, I tend to be pretty like, I tamp down the message. I don't want to be aggressive with people. I don't want to push too hard. I'm not a salesy person. I don't want to tell them to join my programs. But now I'm like, you know what? Even to the point I will probably offend some people, I want to be direct enough that they know how I really feel. Because unlike so many people out in the world, I've lived it now for 20 years. I've proven to myself and hopefully others that like you can be home for dinner with your kids every night and not have your business fall apart. And you can travel the world with them and not have your business stop scaling. I've proven that. And so now I feel even more strongly that I have to live with enormous levels of intention. And I kind of want to shout from the rooftops that other people should as well. And I may be the right messenger for some people and not for others. And I'm okay with that too. I am not the right fit for everyone. Maybe some people want to build massive empires, hundreds of millions of dollars, or be billionaires. And I always think that's great. I am personally not interested or willing to make the sacrifices that would be required. I do believe if I put the effort in, do I think I could get to some of those levels? I do. I think I've learned a lot. I think I have great connections. I think I understand business. I think I've been very fortunate and successful. I would not make the trade-offs required to get to a $200 million net worth because I know the cost of that is family, relationships, time, travel, which I prioritize a whole lot higher than that.
Mac, one last question. What does all of these that you've been through mean in your business now? What are the changes to be expected?
I think the two big things are I am personally going to live even more by what I'm sharing and teaching with others, meaning my schedule and my life is going to be designed by intention, which means I'm not going to be available all the time. I already pretty much take Mondays and Fridays off. So I think I will be incredibly intentional about how I structure my time on one hand. And on the other hand, I want to impact a lot more people. Like I feel like I've been very happy and content mentoring and coaching a small group of people that know who I am and they proactively come to me and I vet them and say, oh, they'd be great to help and work with. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. But I know there are a lot of people that need my help and that need to hear these messages and need to know how to do these things to live with intention. And I'm going to make sure that I am structuring our marketing and outreach as well as our delivery to help a lot more people.